So this is the first triathlon training seminar on behalf of Somersault Events and Adam. I'd like to thank Adam not only for inviting me to contribute to the community in this way, but as I was saying a few minutes ago, our thanks to Adam for his resilience and all of his efforts in returning triathlon to Ottawa water and roads and trails this coming season. So we'll get ready for it. I've got a green screen and some imagery and also slides. So every once in a while, I'll step forward and take a few seconds to change slides just like that. So first, for those of you that don't know me, my name is Geordie McConnell. I come to triathlon from a background of basketball and football. So I wasn't necessarily built for this sport, but I did my first triathlon back in 1986, the National Capital Triathlon, one that Adam will be running in July. And I did an Ironman at 97, being involved in triathlon in many ways for most of my life. Although I did spend a decade teaching outdoor education over in Europe. When I came home to Canada 23 years ago, I guess, roughly, I got into fitness into triathlon. I'm a certified triathlon coach through Triathlon Canada, the founder of the Ottawa Triathlon Club, which is still going strong under the guidance of Todd Morin. So I invite you to look up Ottawa Triathlon Club. I'm also the founder of the Ottawa Running Club, of which Karen, who's in the audience, is part. But what keeps me busy now is, sorry, a message there, but I will ignore messages moving forward. Just making sure that I didn't have, a nitro book fall on my head or something. But yes, what currently keeps me busy now, Ottawa Swimming is keeping me busy administratively, but not actively coaching, but I coach along with Simon and Karen, and we have an amazing team of coaches. So you can look us up at ottawaswimming.ca. OttawaOnlineFitness.ca is our online fitness and triathlon training platform. So I invite you to take a look there. We do have a special on this month, which is if you pay for 5 months in advance, it's $60 a month. You pay $5 months in advance, you get a free resistance band kit, which is worth $70. So give it some thought, check it out. And finally, the sort of triathlon page on Ottawa Online Fitness is also under the title of TriathlonCoach.ca. So that's a little bit about me. I also take part in, I try to mix up my time. I take part in track and field as well. So let's get going with a little bit of history of triathlon. It was this guy, where I'm pointing the wrong way, this guy right here that got me into triathlon. I think I was on a couch at a basketball game, probably finished, and this crazy Hawaii Ironman came on television, and Dave Scott was winning it, and it captured my imagination. 3 years later, I did my first triathlon. But so that would be 1983. 9 years before that, the San Diego Track Club had a special event. They usually do a Bob's, I forget the guy's name, but let's call him Bob, Bob's birthday biathlon, a run and swim, but they added a bike to it on the 25th of September, 1974. And that was the first triathlon. Triathlon grew a lot in California in the next few years, started to spread through the States. And probably the most important step in its explosive growth happened very coincidentally. John Collins, one of the participants in that very first triathlon in Mission Bay, San Diego, moved to Hawaii, and he was part of an awards ceremony after the Honolulu Marathon. And they were drinking and they were talking and they were drinking and they were talking, and they come up with this crazy idea of putting together the Waikiki Rough Water Swim, the Around Oahu bike race, and the Honolulu Marathon, and do it all in one day. And the winner would be called Ironman. So the first Ironman took place in February of 1978. 15 people were at the starting line, one female, I think. And suffice it to say, it's grown a little bit since then, Ironman has, but it was very slow to start until ABC Sports showed up and did a special, and also Sports Illustrated did an article, and it just went crazy. The first triathlon in Canada was in Smiths Falls in 1980. And the Smiths Falls race has been going for a long time, and you know, it might return as well. So when I give a pre-race talk, I talk about body marking. And so body marking, for those of you that haven't done a triathlon, you take a magic marker and you'll put your race number on your arms and your calf, and also your age group, I should say, and your the race you're in. So my tip is, this is a really important tip, and if you have a paper and pen handy, I recommend writing this one down, is a lot of the races happen on a long weekend, but even if they don't, make sure that the magic marker goes on very, very thick, because you don't want it to easily wash off, and you want it to appear in your Zoom meetings or your socializing or the next day when you go to the office. And when you do go to the office or wherever, and somebody says, "What's that?" all you tell them is that you were in a triathlon. Nothing more, you walk away. Because for most people, their only association of triathlon is Ironman. So whatever they want to think of you, they can think of you. And if they're thinking you did an Ironman, all the best for your credibility. In every triathlon, including the local ones here in Ottawa, there's a huge range of individuals. Some are competitive, some train really hard and they want to get on that podium. I, for one, don't even know where the podium's kept, let alone having even been up on it. What you need to know is it's a fantastic avenue for those that are really goal achievers and want to compete and race. However, they are the small minority. The majority of the people at the starting line are equally nervous, and they're just facing up a personal challenge. Maybe they're just doing it to keep fit. Maybe they've got a time goal. But triathlon is a wonderful personal challenge. So rest assured, when you show up at a triathlon, you'll feel at home. As far as equipment goes, you really don't need much, especially if the triathlon you're doing is July and August. You could show up with just a swimsuit, goggles, a bike, safe bike, a helmet, and running shoes. And that's all you need. Now, on the other hand, if my light blocker dropped in the corner there, apologize for this crazy light window there in the corner. So it doesn't take much equipment. However, if you like equipment and you like Amazon shopping or shopping anywhere, including at our local shops, then you're in the right sport, because there's lots of potential gear that you can buy and products and stuff, and it can make it that much more fun. When I talk about bicycles, you know, my bike is old. Two bikes, one's 30 years old, one's 40 years old. But I fully understand why people will buy a new bike, and I encourage it, especially because it can really motivate you. A new bike sitting by the door is like a dog scratching at the door to go out for a walk. It can really motivate you and help you get out the door and enjoy cycling and enhance your preparation for triathlon. So things like trackers, your GPS trackers or whatever you have. I had a conversation with one of my athletes about that the other day, and you know, it's the same with power meters on a bike. They're wonderful tools, but you don't need them. If you want to go low tech and train without it, know that the sport existed for decades and decades and decades before this stuff came along. However, like the new bike, if the wrist tracker helps you to get out the door, to enjoy the swimming, biking, and running and get the training done, then do it. If a power meter helps you to get out the door and enjoy your ride and help you to enjoy your preparation for triathlon, then do it if you got the money. But just know you don't need it. So if you want to take a more low tech approach, that's a totally viable route, and the only route I've ever used myself. I don't even ride with the cycle computer anymore. I'm real Luddite. The most important aspect, and I know you've heard this before about goal attainment, and honestly, just as I was leaving the house, I was talking to my daughter about this as well. I know athletes who have completed triathlons and completed Ironman. I'll give you an example of Ironman. One person finished and they said that they were in the best shape of their life, but their life wasn't in very, very good shape. They did not enjoy the journey to the finish line, and the finish line didn't make up for it. So whether you're training for a tri, super sprint, Olympic, half iron, or iron, what you really need to focus on is enjoying the journey. Focus on the process. Make the process work for you, and you'll be successful in the end. But you need to be process oriented. If you're locked on that achievement and only that achievement, not only will your process be lacking, but so will your joy. And life's way too short not to enjoy the process. I got to keep track of where I am. The distances. So we start with the super sprint. Super sprint and tri. The only difference typically between a super sprint and a tri is the run. So in a tri, the run is 2.5K, and the super sprint is a 5K run. But the swim is typically 200 meters and the bike ride is 20K. You travel around, and different races in different locations have to make their distances work for the location given. And so in some cases, you may come across a tri or super sprint that has a 10K ride as well. So there's a lot of variability here at the super sprint. How long does it take? Roughly, the first finisher will come across the line in roughly 30 minutes, and the final finisher will come across in roughly 60 minutes. And then we've got the sprint. This is the distance that I moved to, I don't know, 8 or 9 years ago, and I love it. It just fits my life so well. You've got a couple variables as far as the swim goes. Some sprint races have a 500-meter swim, and some have a 750 meter swim. But almost exclusively, the bike ride is 20K and the run is 5K. Your winners in the local triathlons will be across the line in roughly an hour. And your final finishers will come across in 2 hours, maybe just over 2 hours. Next up is the Olympic distance, traditionally called the Olympic distance, now officially called the standard distance. I hate that name. You know what? Triathlon naming, it's just not that great, right? Because sprint makes it sound like you are sprinting, but you're not sprinting, you're taking your time. I like the Olympic title. Standard is it's just a non-descriptive. So, especially since in the Olympics, and this confuses things, is in the Olympics, soon this will not be the distance they compete. It'll be this one. I'm pretty sure if that's not happening in the next Olympics in Paris, it'll happen soon. So anyway, the Olympic distance is typically a 1,500 meter swim, 40K ride, 10K run. Your winners will be across in a local triathlon, a community triathlon, roughly 2 hours, and your final finishers in 3.5 hours. And then we move on to what are considered, the Olympic, for me, it'd be a long distance triathlon, but officially the half iron and Ironman are considered the long distance triathlons. The half iron is the Ironman company calls their version 70.3, and it is a 1,900 meter swim, 90K ride, and a 21.1K run. Your winners will come across in roughly 4 hours, and the final finisher in roughly somewhere around 8 hours, maybe a little bit more, depending on the race. The Ironman, or iron distance, because not everybody, you're not allowed to use the term Ironman unless you're with the World Triathlon Corporation, one of their races. So iron distance is the generic term. It is a 3,800 meter swim, 180K ride, and a 42K bike ride. I mentioned the Hawaii, and I had a picture there of Dave Scott, a 6-time winner. When Dave was first approached about taking part for the first time in 1980, somebody told him that. They said 3,800 meter swim, 180K bike, and then a marathon. And he said, whoa, 3 days. 3 days is I don't know if I can keep going for 3 days. And they said, no, it's all on 1 day. And that really got his attention. So, and he did it and won 6 times. So 8 hours, the winners between 8 hours and 17 hours. Yeah, they're going faster than, thanks to technological advances and training advances. They're going sub 8 a lot now. I've got to try to track where I am. There we go. All right. So let me pause here for a second. That all was very introductory information, and the introductory information will continue. But one thing I forgot to say at the start of this talk is that it's the first of 4. And in the second talk in February, we're going to focus on the training side. Right, so I'm just going to talk a little bit about training today, but we're going to get into the nuts and bolts of how to plan your training, how to if you want to have a formal training plan, how to manage that training plan. That's in February. So, good timing, give you lots of time. And I will talk about what to do this month before we finish today. In March, we'll talk about technique, swim, bike, run, and transition technique, so that you can become as efficient a triathlete as possible. And then in April, as race season is around the corner in May with the Early Bird Triathlon, we'll talk about not only the taper, which is the week, depending on the distance of your event, the period immediately before your race, where you taper off how much you're working out in order to allow your body to recover and be in optimal fitness. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about race day tips and race day execution. We'll talk about equipment for race day, and that is in April. So we're spreading it out and giving you some time to digest everything. So we talked about the distances, and this is a really important part of the picture for me. Which is this. I should have had a question mark here. Balanced life or sacrifice, or combination of. training for triathlon doesn't take a lot of time. It depends on the distance that you're doing. If you're training for a tri and you exercise as much as Health Canada, I point over my shoulder because Health Canada is down the street here. If you do your 3 hours of physical activity a week and do swim, bike, run, you can easily, with enough lead-in time, be ready for a tri super sprint, maybe even a sprint. When you start to go a little bit longer, then it requires a little more time, and it may, depending on the circumstance of your life, it may result in some sacrifices. At the very least, if there's other people in your life, friends and family, it requires understanding. So you need to, one of my tips today is to get them, if you have a goal that is sort of down on the Olympic, or next slide, half iron, you need to get buy-in from those around you, even perhaps the people at work. So sacrifice can be part of triathlon. It's not necessarily a bad thing. It's only for a period of time. But again, I come back to that friend that I had who was in the best shape of her life, but her life was not in very good shape. Those sacrifices were too much. So try to avoid that. Try to make sure your journey, your process is balanced and there's support and you enjoy that process, and those around you have buy-in sufficiently that they're enjoying the fact that you are pleased and full of joy through this process. So if an athlete asks me, if they said, I want to do an Olympic triathlon and I only have 3 hours a week of training, I would not say no. I would say, what's your background? What is your level of ability as far as swim, bike, and run? Have you been doing endurance sport? How long have you been doing endurance sport? Maybe the last year, maybe 2 years, okay? How much lead-in time do you have? So depending on those answers, it's quite conceivable to do an Olympic triathlon on 3 hours of training a week. However, the hurt factor at the finish line is going to be pretty high. I don't care how much lead-in time you've got, you're going to be a hurting unit at that finish line. So you have to decide that that's worthwhile. The more time you put in to your training, the more comfort you'll have at the finish line, depending on how hard you push yourself during the race itself, of course. So that's one of the decisions that you have to make, especially when you're picking your distance, right? Is how much time do I have available, and does that fit the distance? That's why I have these slides. If you want to go fast, not just finish, well, more time is needed to go fast. So keep that in mind. When you're training, it doesn't mean just logging hours. Quality training is the key, not blindly building volume. So you can train smart and achieve a great deal on a little bit less time. So that option is available to you. So how much preparation time do you need? Well, here's a very general guide. And let me just interject. Can one interject on himself? I will say that, totally lost my train of thought. Okay, it'll come back to me. It'll come back to me. So the try, 2 to 4 hours a week. I just remember what I was going to say, of exercise. So it's really interesting with triathletes because we always talk about training. We're training. Yeah, you're training, but aren't you exercising? You're exercising, but no, triathletes, they don't like that term exercising. That's for the general public. We're triathletes, we train. But when you start to think about this length of time in terms of exercise, if you tell the average person you exercise 5 hours a week, they will think you are a freak, because not many people out there exercise 5 hours a week. That is impressive. 2 hours a week is more than monumentally more than the average person, even in the Ottawa Gatineau community. So just think about that, the difference between exercise and training. 2 to 4 hours for a tri super sprint, 3 to 6 hours, 3 hours for a sprint for somebody that has a bit of experience is enough. Again, if you do 6 hours, you're going to be going a lot faster, and you'll be or a lot more comfortable. I will usually peak at about 5 hours a week of training when I'm training for a sprint. When I used to do Olympic, I would do 6 hours, no more. So, and I went relatively fast. So 5 to 10 hours a week of training for an Olympic, 10 hours a week of exercise, that's a lot. It's gonna be a challenge to fit it in. But if you do that, again, you will be faster or you will be more comfortable. I always like to talk about safety at an early time. Now, this does not lend itself as well to a virtual world, but please make sure before you start any type of exercise regime that you know for certain that your doctor would give you the nod for that. All right. And obviously start slowly and logically. When you're going through those early stages, all stages, but especially early on, listen to your body. Your body is going to be going through a lot of adaptation early on. I was just talking to one of my athletes about running and how, according to the running world, everyone can go couch to 5K in 10 weeks because that's the training plan. So everybody can fit into 10 weeks. And no, that's wrong, totally wrong. The first 3 weeks are the most important. So if you're not running and you're going to start running, those first 3 weeks, do lots of walking only, or lots of just walks. And when you're ready to start running, take one of those walks and add in 3 or 4 30-second super slow intervals, and do that for weeks and allow your body to get used to the impact. Those 10-week only, or 10-week, I forget what they call them, just pigeonhole you into 10 weeks. Be very careful. They'll work for a lot of people, but in my experience, and I've taught a lot of them, a little bit longer is good, especially in the preparatory stage. Lots of walking. If you're not running right now, lots of walking. No better preparation for running than walking. You get up to a 5K walk, then your transition to running is going to be a lot easier. So that's realistic. We can get out there and run on most days. I did 10K this morning, which is like an ultra marathon for this body, but I survived. Come summer, just keep in mind, swimming safe, swimming with a buddy, or maybe you're swimming at Mooney's within the lane ropes and the guards are there. If you're open water swimming with a buddy, you could have a buoy that you pull behind you. A wetsuit doesn't just keep your body warm in the cooler water, it adds flotation as well. It alone is not sufficient safety when you're doing open water swimming. However, it enhances the buoy. So if you're a wetsuit and buoy, you're that much safer. On the bike, make sure to have a toolkit with you. Here's what I always say. Have a toolkit with you and know how to use it and how to do basic repairs, at the very least, how to change a flat. And if you don't have a toolkit or don't know how to use it, make sure you have a cell phone and somebody waiting at home, staring at the phone, ready to come rescue you in a car. That's not a great option, is it? So get a toolkit, learn how to use it. Bright clothing, obviously, on the bike, learning to ride defensively, avoiding dusk and dawn. There's a million cycling tips, but those are just a few. Same thing when you're running, bright clothes. Always assume you're invisible when you're running. I never assume that they see you. Take some money with you. If you're going on a long run, packing a gel just in case you run out of glycogen, run out of blood sugar low. Maybe you have a cell with you as well, in case you get out there and your iliotibial band starts excessive friction on the outside of your knee. And instead of a 5K walk home, maybe you can call for somebody to bring you home. I think we're almost on to our last slide. So touching on, I mentioned the next talk is about training, but since you're going to be starting, January is the month of commencement, month of new starts, right? I wanted to talk a little bit about this today. Whenever you are preparing for something, the first question you have to ask yourself is, where am I starting from? And you need to choose an appropriate workload for that starting point. If you, for example, have not rode a bike in 5 months, and you get on a bike and you think, I'm going to try 2 hours just to see what it's like, to prove that I can do it, to test myself. Well, guess what? You're going to do it. Chances are your hips, knees, something's going to not like that because your body is not ready for it, and you'll lose 3 weeks to injury, hypothetically. So don't test yourself. Start with less than you know you can do. Here's the tip that I use, specifically with running. And that is to carefully consider how much walking you've done, how long it is since you run, and do a really honest, rational evaluation of how much of a run, how long a run could you do and not be sore tomorrow. Now take that amount and cut it in half and go do it. Because honestly, you have no idea how long your body can handle, and chances are you're being overly ambitious. Your first run, do almost nothing so that you don't feel anything the next day. Because if you do too much and you feel something the next day, that could easily turn into an injury because you haven't been doing it. So leave your body wanting more. Next, so you find the right starting workload, you figure out your week schedule, and you just start to have a little bit of fun with swimming, biking, and running. You need to rest and eat well in order for the adaptation to take place. A lot of people think more, gotta train. Hard training is useless if you don't have sufficient rest. Always remember that. As a coach, it's almost always, that's the correction I'm doing with athletes, is saying, whoa, slow down. Take it easy here, run slower, take a day off here, and find the balance. You should train like you eat, small portions regularly. Consistency. I've had the real privilege of working with some of the greatest triathletes in history, Dave Scott, Mark Allen, Karen Smyers, Simon Whitfield, and not as a coach. I've learned from them as a student. They'll all tell you, it's not rocket science, right? You gotta train. You gotta get out there and train consistently. And the key to consistent training is balance with rest, right? So balance and recovery are really the elements that are missing from most people's training philosophy. I knew there was another slide. It was out of order. I found it. Okay, so it's January, getting started. What are your first steps as you prepare to become a triathlete? Let me pause there. How do you become a triathlete? Go out the door, do a short swim, do a short bike ride, even on your trainer, and then go run 100 meters. You're a triathlete. All right. So Just understand that ours is a very welcoming community. And if someone suggests that when you're training for a triathlon, if you're doing all of the events, you're not a triathlete, tell them to come see me. So before we use our tool, and the body is a tool, not a trophy. So before we use this tool, let's sharpen it up a little bit. All right, let's make sure that we don't have any strength lack of strength in certain areas or imbalances of strength. For example, if your shoulders are weak and your chest is tight, you are predisposed to perhaps some rotator cuff problems. So address your strength. It doesn't have to be a lot. Get some strength training going. Work on your mobility, especially strength and mobility in the shoulders, chest, and the glutes as well. Impact fitness. So this is the high impact that we face when we are running. I've already addressed that. Really slowly introducing it. Injury proof your body. Establish the behaviors now and continue them. And you will achieve the single most important goal, the number one goal of every triathlete. And that is to make it to the start line. Forget about the finish line for now. When you create your goal structure, and we'll talk about that in a later seminar, the number one goal you have is to make it to the starting line. So you need to do everything to forget about your time for now. Make it to the starting line. Goal number 2, enjoy the race, have fun. Goals number 3, 4, 5, and you can introduce some time goals if you want. Well, number 3 obviously is the finish. So we build resilience through strength training, mobility, some controlled impact fitness. I call it kinetic or mechanical fitness, injury proofing your body. And then you're out there building your aerobic base. So this is talk test territory, right? You are doing your walks, jogs, runs, largely at conversational pace. So that has you at a lower intensity, which trains the aerobic metabolism, and that is the key to endurance. In the webinar section of our OOF site, there is a webinar about training intensities. So from that starting point we talked about, the right workload, slowly build. Don't be in a rush. Do it at a conversational pace, slowly build, and give some thought to your technique. We will be talking more about technique next month, swim, bike, and run technique. And in March, as a spoiler alert, in March, I will have some swim spots opening up. So stay tuned for that. I'll give you more information on that next month. So that is end of part 1, our first seminar, and it was 40 minutes. The next one again is about training in February. I'm going to just stop the recording now and say thank you if you're watching this recording.